Greetings and namaste to all my brothers and sisters. Welcome back and welcome to part three, the end of all suffering. This is quite an exciting time for me. You know, um, if what I'm telling you is possible and all, I just finished writing out part three and I decided I couldn't wait to give it to you. So here we are. Let's kick off with a disclaimer. A disclaimer. This video, especially this one, part three, is not a video that you watch with the TV or the stereo playing in the background. Okay? If you don't have time to sit with me with no distractions, then stop the video and come back, when you can give it your fullest attention. Okay? That's the disclaimer. All right? No TVs. Ideally, you'll sit down, in your office or home office or your room where you're not going to be disturbed for as long as this video goes, to get the most out of it. So, the first thing that we're going to do is get clear about what is going to transpire throughout this particular section so that you know what to expect. Okay, it's nothing to be afraid of. Like I said to you before, I'm not going to brainwash you. No hocus pocus, no voodoo, none of that. Okay, I am reminding you of that because throughout this section, chances are, as I mentioned, that you're going to feel things that you have never felt before. Like I said before, all the pieces have to fit, and there are a lot of pieces to this jigsaw puzzle in particular. Okay? But in the end, it is all going to make sense. It's going to be nothing less than a work of art that you're going to be proud to show off. You're going to be proud to display this to the world. All right? You are going to get this inner peace, this happiness, this freedom that I've been talking to you about, that so many of you have been waiting for, searching for, hoping one day to find. Some of you, like me, my own case, I waited 36 years. And now I'm telling you that this is the time. The time has come. And to get it right here, right now, today, you're going to have to do two things, especially now. Two things that you have already been doing. Number one, remember the requirement. You have to pay attention. I'm going to be going pretty fast sometimes. You need 100% focus, nothing less. Okay? Number two, remember the price. Okay? A, patience. Like I just said, you've been waiting for this for a long time. Okay? By the end of this part three, you will have it. So don't concern yourself in any way, shape, or form about when or how it's going to happen. As a matter of fact, doing that, worrying about it, looking for it, will only make it more difficult for you to get, for you to find. It's like when you lose your keys or something you've misplaced, You look for it for 3 hours and you say, fuck it, it's lost, And then what happens? You give up and boom, all of a sudden it's right in front of you. Same thing here. Okay? Know that you will find it. So relax and just let it come, whenever that is. Okay? I said to you in the past as well that this is something that you've always had, that there's never been a time when you haven't had it. It's something that I can't give you. You'll understand this. Or help you to get because you were born with it. You know? What this is, what you and I are doing is just a natural process to clear away the dust, the garbage, the debris. you know? We're going to throw some oil in your lamp. so that you can turn it up, and in the end your lamp's going to burn so bright, man, you won't be able to not see it. Okay? The requirement, 100% focus. The price, A, patience. B, listen carefully because I need to elaborate on our agreement here a little further. If you recall, doubts, opinions, judgments, fears, questions, pay no mind to them whatsoever because in the end, chances are none of them are going to matter. Okay? Wait till the end of our time together, and then you can accept or reject everything I've said. And here's where I'm going to elaborate. I said to you to pretend that for our time together that everything I say to you is beyond any doubt the absolute truth. Now, what you are about to hear is my way of telling this story. I have devised, created in my own way, in my own words. I've broken it down in simple, easy to understand language and analogies for you to be able to grasp with virtually no effort the lessons that I have learned from my masters, my teachers, my sages, my gurus, and most importantly, from my very own hands on experience. Okay? I've managed to condense more than 20 years of lessons, 20 years worth of mistakes, 20 years worth of victories, into an extremely colorful, exciting, funny, informative, educational, but above all, beyond all that, this is a road to freedom like you've never known. And this is for real. I am, as I have referred to myself several times now, nothing more than a messenger. Period. I deserve no thanks. You know, I don't want thank yous. I am not telling you something that, given the same resources, that you couldn't or wouldn't do for yourself. The truth is that by you being here and taking this chance with me, trusting that I can deliver this message to you, it is I who owe you thanks. Thank you so much from the bottom of my heart to allow me to do this for you, to allow me to do this with you. I want to make this clear that it is you and only you that will be responsible, that is responsible for any changes that you will get in your life from this point on. With that said, I'm proud of you for having the courage to invest your time with me. And I thank you all for allowing me the privilege of reminding you of what you already know, of what you've always known. It's just something that, like me, you might have forgotten, you know? So, moving on. In this part 3, the end of all suffering, you are going to learn how to learn. I said to you in the beginning that our educational system is designed, it teaches us from kindergarten up, before even that, to learn a specifically prescribed agenda. What those who seek to control us and do control us, what they want us to learn. Our educational system does not promote free thinking. That's the last thing they want us to do, to think for ourselves. Okay? The system in place creates, and I might add, it is extremely effective in creating carbon copy robots, soldiers, and consumers. We're taught to memorize, to learn, not how to learn. In this part three, the end of all suffering, you are going to learn the cause of your inability, or rather, the cause of your difficulties in absorbing and retaining information. Some of you are probably saying, I don't have a problem learning. And I'm not saying that you do. Obviously, you do learn and you're able to retain information. But look at it this way. And remember, read between the lines. All right. When I buy a computer, the first thing that I do when I take it out of the box, okay, is I go through it internally. Okay, I boot it up and then I delete programs that the computer comes with that I don't need. Okay, these useless programs, oftentimes they are hidden, secret programs that spy on me, sending information to whoever, letting them know what I'm doing. And as if that isn't bad enough, it also uses up valuable resources of my computer without my permission, and they slow my computer down. You know what I'm talking about. Even then, okay, as I use my computer over time, I surf the internet, I download programs, these things called spyware, malware, adware. These secret malicious programs attach themselves again without my permission, and they start using up valuable resources, my CPU, my RAM, space on my hard drive, etc. So what I do then is I clean it out, and I do it as often as possible. Okay, as soon as my virus programs, lets me know that something's wrong, that something is trying to attach itself to my computer, and you know what happens is, by keeping my computer clean of all these viruses, is that I end up with a lightning fast tool that is reliable, that hardly ever crashes, and it gives me the information I want and nothing else. I trained myself to do that, you know, and on my own, you know, and exactly like this scenario of the end of all suffering and enlightenment, I burned out a lot of motherboards, man. I crashed my computers to the point that they were just, they were unrepairable, you know. But I learned how to do it myself. Now, people who don't know how to do that, clean out their computer when they get it and delete programs and start up programs, stuff like that, they end up paying through the nose for virus programs and computer cleanup software that in many cases just makes matters worse. In other words, you still have a computer, okay? And it works, just not to its maximum potential. And that is about to change. You're about to clean out your hard drive, and you're about to surf the internet with lightning speed. All right? T1 has nothing on this. In this part three, you are going to rediscover the courage that you were born with. The JCC, the Jesus Christ courage. No more fear ever again. You are also going to learn Jesus Christ forgiveness. Not only to forgive those who have caused us or caused you harm. My dear brothers and sisters, you're going to learn to forgive the one person you need to forgive most of all, yourself. In part three, the end of all suffering, you're going to learn the cause of so many of our illnesses, our sicknesses, and better yet, how to cure yourselves without drugs. Not in all cases. Sometimes, we do need help. for physical ailments. But as far as for worry, concern, anxiety, depression, insomnia, and fear, that's over with. That comes to an end here and now. I told you that people, they say there's not enough time in the day. I said they were wrong. That there is, matter of fact, time to spare. I'm going to prove that to you. You know, you have undeniably more time than you think. I said to you in previous videos that the average human mind has over 60,000 thoughts a day. Most of them are useless. They are non productive. They are repetitive, the same bullshit over and over, nonstop. The majority of those thoughts are beyond our control. For most people, like it was for me, these 60,000 thoughts a day were a source of misery for 36 years. I did anything I could to stop from thinking, to stop my mind from thinking. During the day, it wasn't as bad as when I laid down to sleep. Because during the day, you're occupied. You're working, interacting with people, doing what you have to do to earn a living, to take care of yourself, eating, drinking, etc. You know, not that the thoughts would stop entirely throughout the day, because they never stop. You know, it's just that you are distracted from them from time to time, doing the things you have to do. But man, oh man, come bedtime, different fucking story altogether. A lot of you know what I'm talking about. I know you do. Aside from my own personal experience of this, the reason that I can make these statements is all you have to do is look at all the over the counter and prescription drugs that are out there today to help people sleep, to deal with their depression, their anxiety, their phobias. You know, Wellbutrin, Xanax, Clonopin, Ambien, Lunesta, Prozac, Valium, Ativan, Librium, Abilify, Seroquel. And the list goes on and on. Drug companies make billions of dollars, if not trillions nowadays, sedating us, addicting us. In many cases, we become their customers. We're addicted to these drugs for life. Look at the number of people in this country and around the world who take these drugs every day, multiple times a day. It's insane. And what is even more insane is that nowadays we are giving these drugs to our children to help them cope with life. Ritalin, Adderall, ADD, ADHD, and depression. 5, 6, 7, 8 year olds with depression. Okay? I'm not saying that there aren't people out there who need these drugs. You know my history. My mother, she was on 1,500 milligrams of lithium a day, 3 times a day, amongst the medley. She was a zombie most of the time, and incidentally, by the way, she also suffered for 17 years with psoriasis, one of the primary side effects of lithium. I saw my mother suffer with that for 17 years. Her skin peeling off her body. She would cry because it itched so bad. One day I got fed up with watching her suffer and I went online and I found out that lithium was the cause of it. I remember how angry I got, man. The day I found out what caused my mother to suffer for so long. Did her doctors apologize? No. They just took out their little pad. They They switched her medication, and within less than 2 weeks, her psoriasis was gone. Anyway, if it's not prescription drugs, then it's whatever drugs we can get our hands on, legally or illegally. Oxycontin, marijuana, alcohol, heroin, or we go the holistic route, okay? You know, teas, herbs, natural sleep aids, I used to take iron and all kinds of stuff to calm me down. I've done it all. And the simple fact is that we are dealing with these problems that by nature we're not supposed to have. You wouldn't know it looking around, but we weren't born needing these drugs. How often do we give drugs of any kind to an infant to put them to sleep? Never. And yet, they sleep like a baby. So what changed? Nothing changed with our bodies, the bodies that we were created with. The only thing that changes is our mind, how we think of ourselves, how we think of our bodies. Napoleon Hill, read his books. I'm not going to go through his biography, but at the same time, there are some very interesting things, compelling proof of what the human body is capable of. Not only his body, by the way, but that of his son. You know, how he cured a birth defect that his son was born with. Truly unbelievable. But the story is true nevertheless. Anita Morjani, Dying to Be Me. She wrote a book, Dying to Be Me. Here is a young, vibrant, strong, independent, intelligent woman who, through fear and fear alone, made herself so sick that in the end, she found her body riddled with cancer of the lymph nodes, lymphoma. She went into a coma. All of her vital organs shut down completely. She had lesions all over her body that, from bed sores and from not being able to move around, being confined to a wheelchair at one point, you know, her neck muscles were so weak that she couldn't keep her head up, you know. So she dies. She goes into this coma. She's dying. She dies. And then she comes back. Her experience, the way that she described it, was eye opening. And more than that, I found incredible comfort in the things that she was so generous to share with us. And the way her recovery is described in major medical journals with no drugs. In 3 weeks, she walked out of that hospital with a perfect bill of health. Even the lesions on her body that they told her would require reconstructive surgery, they healed themselves in the same 3 weeks. No drugs, or rather, very little drugs. I think like vitamins and maybe an IV or two for the first 2 or 3 days. That's it, something like that. Doctors were and are still astonished at how this woman recovered. They can't explain it. She does. She does. And she's not the only one with an experience like that. She's one of many, man. Eben Alexander, he's a Harvard trained neurosurgeon, and he's a man of science. Has to be proof type of guy. He wrote a book called Proof of Heaven, a minute by minute account of how he found himself from 1 minute to another, man. The guy was in bed, he just got up, he was walking like in his hallway to the bathroom, and boom, He's on the floor, brain damage, and in a coma, you know, and he comes back to life. And he comes back to life, and within 3 days, 3 days, his brain damage and the coma, it's like they never happened. Dr. Wayne Dyer, cancer, cured. Read his book, Secrets of Your Own Healing Power. Amazing book. Fact is, I would say that in many, if not most cases, and you hear this all the time, that these drugs are prescribed to perfectly healthy people. These drugs to deal with depression, anxiety, fear, worry, concern, panic attacks, these drugs are in many cases, not in all cases, but in many cases, I believe these drugs are the cause of these problems. You know, these drugs, most drugs, the majority of drugs, think about this. They only treat the symptoms of depression, anxiety, insomnia. Doctors prescribe expensive drugs, man, to treat the symptoms of, not to cure the causes of depression and anxiety. Because if you cure the cause, salaries, bonuses, perks, and most important of all, stock prices go down. I'm not a doctor. I'm not going to treat your symptoms with a pep talk or a you can do it speech. Think positively, intensely feel, write it down, build a scrapbook. Fuck all that for now. You can do that and you should do those things, for yourself when the time is right. You don't need me to tell you what to do. I'm not smarter than you. I've said that before. You'll figure it out. Those are the ways that you are going to learn to heal yourselves in so many more ways than one. Right now, at this point, you guys are still in a coma. And you are about to wake up from it. That is what we've been doing here, waking up. You're going to find the real cause of, you're about to find, with the help of some of the best life surgeons in the history of mankind, 5,000 years of experience, you're going to find that cancer that has debilitated you, crippled you all your life without you even knowing that it was there. It is a secret that has been kept from you, the wool that's been pulled over your eyes. You've never known that that cancer was there, and then once you find that cancer, once you see it, once you hear it for yourself, naturally, with your very own power, your power, not mine, with the power that you were created with, your birthright, the power to do fucking anything, man. Once you find that cancer, you are going to fucking destroy it. Remember, having the same resources you wouldn't do for yourself. Oftentimes, many times, I would lay awake in bed trying to go to sleep, and my mind just wouldn't stop. I used to cry in tears, literally. I used to scream sometimes in my room, in my bed, looking at the ceiling. I used to say, I just want to go to sleep, please, for the love of God. Stop, leave me alone. No more thoughts, no more thinking, please. I fucking remember it like as if it was yesterday. I used to beg for them to stop. I had absolutely no control over them. And to make matters worse, none of those thoughts I'm talking about were in any way useful. They were thoughts of what most people deal with: concern, worry, regret, guilt. That's a big one for me. My two daughters, not being there for them. Anxiety. What the fuck am I going to do with my life? And panic. You know, that's what they were, literally panic attacks, anxiety attacks. Man, I can't tell you how many times I thought I was having a heart attack. Couldn't breathe. I cannot tell you of the release, the utter elation that I experienced when I was able to make them stop, to make the torture stop. Oh man, I remember my first night, man, like as if it was last night. It was at that Pennsylvania rest area, man. When I laid my ass down to sleep, man, after destroyed that fucking demon, I slept like a baby for the first time in my life, in my conscious life. And there has not been a single night since, no matter what I'm dealing with in my life, no matter what's going on in the world, that I have not slept in absolute peace and tranquility. How many of you would give your right arm for that? For that alone. Good news. You can keep your arm. You won't have to give it up. I didn't have to. I went through a lot of shorts. I went through a lot of underwear. you know, but you don't have to pay for this because this is a gift. That's why it's free. It's the same gift that was given to me that I will now pass on to you by the end of this part three, the end of all suffering. So, now you know what you're going to get out of this. Just let go. Let it happen. You're in good hands. You know, I'm not going to ask you to trust me or believe what I say. No, I'm not going to do that. But I am going to beg of you on my knees. I'm going to beg of you to trust yourselves, to trust that you are safe, believing to be that what I reveal to you is as close to accurate as possible. And when you hear it, when you see it, and when you feel it, don't deny yourself the truth. Make no mistake about it, this information that I'm going to give you is all around you every day in ways so simple that you're not going to fucking believe it. Breadcrumbs everywhere. And you can deny it all day long, but the fact is that it's been right in front of you, hiding in plain sight. You can hear it, you can see it, you can smell it, you can taste it, but you need the right engine to do that. Your fuel filters are clogged. overhauling your engine. You've chosen the balls out option, and that's all you've gotten up until this point. A 5-star blue chip platinum edition top of the line first class service. You know what's changed? Nothing. Here in part 3, same thing. All the bells and especially the whistles. Stay to the end. Prove me wrong. And no, I'm not sick. The energy is coming, believe me. The crazy man, he's coming back. With a vengeance, okay? I'm just pacing myself. I've been writing for somewhere around 60 hours, in the last 3 days. And right now I'm going on 16, 17 hours today, so I'm pacing myself, you know. From this point on, I'll tell you what though, when it starts, it's going to start with a fucking fury because no matter how tired I am, when I get to that point, you'll understand what gives me that energy. All right? This energy that I'm talking about is coming in a way you haven't seen yet. And keep in mind, all right, Thomas Jefferson, the price of freedom is is eternal vigilance. Okay? Remember and don't forget for even a millisecond throughout this whole process that how I deliver this message is meaningless. Meaningless. But what the message is priceless. Gold, silver, and diamonds. Nothing compared to the value that you're about to find inside yourself. So, soldiers, forward march. How to overhaul an engine. 6 simple, not easy steps. And by no means is this step right here, the end of all suffering, easy. Step 1, disconnect your engine from everything. You're paying the price. Check. Step 2, open it up. By now, you're open to something new, something different, like you've never done before. You're willing to work, bruise your knuckles a little bit. They're going to get a little bruised here. You're still here with me, though. Step 2, check. Open it up. In this part 3, the end of all suffering, we are on step 3. We have the engine open now, open-minded. And now we're going to take a close look inside. We're going to get clear. We're going to find the problems that have made our ride in life a living hell. Okay? Once we do that, we're halfway home, you remember? Then, step 4, we're going to give it a good cleaning. And then in the next video, part 4, the path of and to enlightenment, we continue our overhaul. Step 5, you'll get the highest quality, longest lasting, high performance parts you need. And then lastly, step 6, we'll put it all together and you'll be on your way in your nice shiny ATV with a kick-ass engine. Okay? So here's what I want you to do. Pause the video. Stand up, go to the bathroom, pour yourself a cup of coffee, grab your smokes, shake off whatever you're thinking, and then come back when you're ready for the ride of your life. I'm ready. I'm born ready for this. So giddy up. Let's rock and roll. How to learn. There are 3 things I've learned that have truly made a difference in my life. Coming from a background, as you know, my formal education extremely limited. I told you that I had read many books when I was a stockbroker, and none of them did anything to help my career. I'll tell you why that was, and more importantly, how it changed. You could read 1,000 books, but if you don't understand what you're reading, it's not going to make much of a difference, you know? Or if you only understand half of what you're reading, and that's how it was for me. I didn't know how to read. I could read, but I didn't know how to read. You know, I read, I understood less than half of what I ever read. Things started changing in my life when I acquired the ability in a very unique way to fully understand, to really grasp, to assimilate, to have it become a part of me, any information that I was looking at. And let me tell you how to do that, or rather, what worked for me anyway. I know there are a lot of people out there that are more educated than I am, okay? More educated than me in the formal sense. And while you might know the following information, this is for our fellow brothers and sisters that don't, you know? Having the following information is extremely important, especially right now for this section. And besides, if you're intelligent, well educated, then you know there's always a chance that you might learn something. That's what I've found, you know. And this, by the way, combined with everything you'll learn today, you'll be learning and absorbing from this day forward with supersonic speed. Okay? For me, there are three fundamental steps to acquiring and retaining wisdom. We will go over these one at a time. It won't take long for you to get it. Number one, get clear definitions. 100% understanding, nothing less. Number two, don't make anything up. Okay? This is the difference between thinking versus knowing. Thinking you know something versus knowing you know something. And number three, like Michael Jackson said, don't stop till you get enough. Okay? Number one, get clear definitions. 100% understanding, nothing less. Okay? What that means is never, not for any reason, ever go past a single word that you don't understand. Why? Very simple. And this is one of the biggest lessons I've learned. It totally changed my life as far as educating myself was concerned. For example, and by the way, I've never forgotten this lesson. It stuck since the first day I learned it. So I'm going to give it to you exactly how it was given to me because it is that effective. Here we go. Listen carefully. Pretend that you read the following sentence. During the crepuscular hours, you would be amazed at how much you can learn. During the crepuscular hours, you would be amazed at how much you can learn. In the what? Exactly. I never heard that word before. Crepuscule. The fuck is that? Now, if I were to define that word for you, crepuscule, here's what you would hear. Listen up. During the twilight hours, you would be amazed at how much you can learn. See? You understand it now, right? You fully understand it. So, here's what happens most of the time when you go past a single word that you don't understand. You can read three, four, five sentences, paragraphs, or even like three, four, 5 pages of information. None of it will make any sense. If you keep going without getting a clear understanding for that one word, like I used to, you say, fuck it. I'll figure it out. One word can't be that important. I would just keep reading until something else made sense to me again. And by the time that happened, jewels of information left behind. So, how do you define words you don't understand? Dictionary. I can't tell you how many dictionaries I have, all types of different dictionaries. I'll tell you why that is in a second. All right. You can also cheat a little bit. What else is new? I'm bad boy fucking Buddha. You can cheat a little bit with a thesaurus. A thesaurus where you can find usually synonyms or the equivalent of the word or words that you're trying to define to get an understanding of. For example, automobile, synonym is car. That's it. That's the secret. Words of caution. There have been many, many times when the simplest word, like the word the or the letter a, has stopped me from fully grasping, you know, a lesson. Hold on one second. Something just activated on my computer. Here we go. So, what is going on with my computer? Let's see. My computer decided to play with me. So anyway, the letter the A has stopped me from fully grasping a concept that I was trying to learn. You'd be surprised at how many definitions little words like or have. Sometimes there are 100 definitions for a single word, and and you have to keep going until you find the word that fits, the definition that fits for that particular situation that you're trying to define. There's a reason we're talking about all this. Sometimes, a lot of times, you look up a word and you get stuck there because there's a word in the definition that you don't understand. And then you find yourself defining the definition. I've spent an hour sometimes doing that, but in the end, it's worth it. One of the things that learning like this taught me was patience. One last word on that. One last point I want to make is that many of the books that I've read were written a long time ago, sometimes thousands of years ago. Sometimes just 100 years ago or 50 years ago. The way people spoke back then is very different than how we speak today. Some words are literally, in my experience, undefinable. I can't find the meaning of it in any dictionary. But maybe I didn't look hard enough. I'm sure that somehow somebody can find it. I just decided that it wasn't that important, because we don't use that word anymore. Case in point, The Prince by Machiavelli. Small book, really small book. Political science. It took me like 3 months to read that first book. Honestly, I think it took like almost a year to read that book, man. I put it down so many times because I just couldn't get through it. I need 7 dictionaries to go through it. But you know what? After a while, it took me 3 months to read, 2 months to read, and eventually I could go through that book within a day or two. Without the help of a dictionary. You know. So here's my point: the better you learn words you don't understand, the easier learning becomes. There's also something that helped me a great deal, but I'm not going to go into it much right now. Actually, it's quite easy. It's called mass, okay? Adding mass to your learning process. And basically, all that is adding physical elements to what you're trying to learn. In other words, you add pictures, you add audio, you add physical objects that you can touch and move around. And what you're doing in that process is that you're not just using your thinking, but you are also using and attaching your senses, as many of your senses as you can use to better understand what you're trying to learn. I use that all the time to explain things to people, and and they don't know what I'm doing, but they usually say, "Oh, I get it now." They get it. They get a clear picture. Just a quick example so that you totally understand this. Have you ever seen in a movie, in a war movie, where the drill sergeant or the guy in charge is trying to explain a mission to his men that he's sending off? He'll have pictures of the compound. He'll have a map or an aerial view. Um, of where the mission is going to take place. He'll have it on a wall or on a projector or on a screen. And what he's doing is he's giving his men visual mass, okay? So that they're not just thinking, they're seeing it, getting a better understanding of where they need to go and what has to be done. Sometimes they'll have a map on a table, right? And they'll have these little pieces that they move around and they say, okay, this is where the hostages are being held. This is the tower you have to take out. This is where you'll be coming in from. That is mass. That's it. It's just more than just thinking to understand something. Um, Now, before I learned the above mentioned strategies, I used to go with mistake number two, or rather, lesson number two. Big one. Don't make anything up, okay? Thinking versus knowing. When I used to come across words I didn't understand, a lot of times I used to make up what they meant, all right? My best guess, And this applies here, right now, in this section. Very, very important lesson. Listen up. If and when you say out loud to someone else or quietly, if you say it to yourself in your mind, if you start a sentence or a thought with any of the following words: I think, I thought, I believe, I'm pretty sure, or any variations of those, you're making shit up. I think, I thought, I believe, I'm pretty sure, making it up. You don't know. You think you know. And there's a big difference between the two. You cannot imagine how often that happens on a daily basis. In my experience, every single person I meet does this. Let me tell you something. And if you ask anybody I know, friends, family, etc., business associates, they'll all tell you something about me. The same thing. To me, it's the most aggravating thing in the world. It just flat out pisses me off. Not that I get angry anymore, but people tend to get angry with me when I refuse to accept their answer to a question that I'm asking them. And usually I get really frustrated after only a few times. I start getting loud about it, but this is the deal. How many times have you said, I think, and then you find out that you're wrong? You know, it happened to me many times, and I'm sure it's happened to you as well. For example, if I get lost in my truck, I'm 13 foot 6 inches high, 80,000 pounds, 8.5 foot wide, 5 axles. Okay. I ask somebody for directions and they say, I think trucks are allowed down that road. I asked them, are you sure? And they say, yeah, 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 I'm pretty sure. I see trucks over there all the time. What happens? More often than not, there's a 10-foot overpass, a 10-ton bridge, low hanging trees or wires, weight restrictions. Now, the guy wasn't lying to me. He does see trucks over there all the time. 15-foot box trucks, pickup trucks, even small tractor trailers, 26,000 pounders, not 80,000-pound tractor trailers like mine. It only takes once to get stuck in a situation like that, and you learn your lesson quick, you know? It's taken me sometimes 2 hours or more to get out of a situation like that. There's not enough room to turn around. So now I have to back up, or rather back out, traffic behind me, 2, 3 miles. It's happened at night. That really sucks, you know? Now, when I ask for directions and someone says I think, I get 100% understanding of what they're saying to me. I explain it to them. I say, I'm roller coaster foreseeing problems one step ahead, So I politely say, look, I'm 13 foot 6 inches high. I weigh 80,000 pounds. I'm 40 tons. I have 5 axles. Are there any low hanging trees, wires, etc.? I tell them that if they are not absolutely sure about what they are telling me, that I could put myself and others in danger. You know what they say then? A lot of them, they're like, "Oh man, I don't know." Like they don't want to be responsible for this shit, or they sometimes they say, "Dude, I'm a trucker," or "My husband's a trucker." You're safe to follow my directions, and I'm like, "Okay." Or sometimes they say, "Yeah, man, I'm absolutely positive that you guys are allowed on that road." And even then, sometimes, no matter how much you prepare, sometimes, things happen. But no matter what happens, I know that I did my best to understand what I'm getting into to keep myself out of trouble. Aside from putting yourself or someone else, for that matter, in a situation of a potential crash, here's the one thing that motivated me to really make this change, to stop making shit up. Here it is. When I say I think I know something, and it turns out that I'm wrong, it makes me look fucking stupid. And that is the truth. I didn't know what I was talking about. The reason most people will say I don't know to a question is because their ego, you know, not knowing something, to their ego, not knowing something means that they're stupid. When in fact, you know, have you ever heard of someone talking about something that they have no idea about? Something that you know the facts of? In New York, we say that a person like that is talking out of their ass. In other words, they're talking shit. It's worthless. Socrates was killed, sentenced to death, because he said, I don't know. The oracle said, no one in the world is wiser than Socrates. What made him the wisest man in the world was that he was the only one who realized, accepted, and admitted that in reality, he truly didn't know anything. You know, he said, the more I learn, the more I realize, the less I know. I agree. I feel the same way, man. You will too. You'll understand this. What got him sentenced to death, actually, um, is not that he realized that about himself, that he didn't know anything. He went around proving to other people who thought they knew something, that they didn't know anything either. He made people not only look stupid, but he proved that they were. That they did, in fact, did not know what they were talking about. And he did that to too many wrong people, big people, and hey, they killed him for it. Coming into this section, part three, the end of all suffering, forget everything you think you know. You know what? Matter of fact, forget everything you actually know. Just for the time we are together, that's paying the price. You want to know the difference between thinking you know something and knowing you know something? When you think you know something, there's always a question mark up here somewhere. Question mark. But when you know something, there are no questions at all. Quick example and we'll move on. I used it before. Stick your hand in fire, you get burned. There's no question about it. You know for a fact that if you stick your hand in fire, you're going to get burned. That and that alone is accurate thinking for yourself. All right, so I know that I've been pretty detailed about this learning how to learn section and the thinking versus knowing section. I've told you in the past that everything I do on purpose. I'm going to make a suggestion here. The end of all suffering is coming. But if you want to get the most out of it, go back to the beginning and listen to these two previous sections again. If you didn't understand all of it, or if you got impatient, remember the price. I'm not saying that you're slow by any means, but and especially the thinking versus knowing section has tons of information in it that would benefit you greatly if you contemplated it a little bit, little by little. And for those of you who are ready to move on, let's get it on. I told you about a book I read called Words of Grace by Sri Ramana Maharshi. Who am I? Okay, the tattoo that I have on my hand. I told you that I got it there because I wanted to remind myself at all times so that anytime I made a decision or I have to make a decision, I ask myself, who am I being? Okay. I told you about an essay he wrote in that book. It was called Self Inquiry. Okay. That essay changed my life. In it, he talks about doing an exercise that we're going to do now. It's called the Who Am I exercise. The way the exercise works, and I'm just going to explain it. We're not going to do it right now. Well, yes and no. Here's how the exercise works. You ask yourself, who am I? And you keep asking yourself, who am I? Until you get an answer. And that answer blew my mind. As a matter of fact, I gave you that answer in part two. Do you remember when I said to you that, we had two important questions that we needed to address at the time? And the first question was, who am I? The second was, what qualifies me to make these statements that I can bring you to this place of enlightenment? But the first question was, who am I? And I said, the eternal question. And I responded with the eternal answer. Remember? I don't know. You know, doing that who am I exercise is how I came up with that answer. We're going to do that exercise right now. You can elaborate on it, later on if you want to. It's a great meditation, by the way, that I do. Matter of fact, let's talk just a little bit about that meditation for a second. The biggest obstacle that people have, as I've heard, is that their mind won't stop wandering. They can't focus, etc. Remember when I told you that you can't give your total focus to any more than one thing at a time? When I use this meditation, who am I? Meditation, I focus on that. It relaxes me. It puts me into a state of love, appreciation. Let's get to it so you understand. Okay? Later on, take some time to really get into it. But for now, we're going to do the condensed version of it for time's sake. Okay? But it'll be enough for you to understand and to get to where you need to go. All right? So let's begin. Starting with your toes, ask yourself. You ask yourself, am I my toes? What's the answer? No. Am I my feet? No. Am I my ankles? No. Am I the real me? Am I my legs, my thighs, my torso, my chest, my shoulders, my arms, my fingers, my hands? Am I any of that? No. Am I my head, my eyes, my ears, my nose, my mouth, my hair? Is the real me who I truly am any of that? No. After you got done with the outside of your body, then you go inside. Am I my lungs, my liver, my kidneys, my heart, my brain? Am I any of these things? You know? Are any of these things me, the real me, the voice inside, the voice that I hear a fraction of a second before I speak the words or think the thought? Think about this. Before you start thinking about something, you tell yourself to start thinking about it. So obviously, you're not your mind either. Now, Sri Ramana Maharshi said that when you get to that point, when you realize that you are not your mind either, when you come to the conclusion to that point, when you realize that you are, that who you are is that voice behind the thought. When you get to that place, realize that you are not that either. Socrates said something that I'll never forget, that nature is not one legged on anything, that everything that exists has an opposite. Albert Einstein said that for every action, there's an equal or opposite reaction, cause and effect, black and white, sunshine and rain. So, even though you are not all those things, in a way, you are. The only answer to the eternal question of who am I that makes any logical sense to me is the same answer that Socrates gave. The eternal answer. I don't know. Period. I don't know. We're connecting the dots here. Trust me. Putting all the pieces together in this jigsaw puzzle. It'll all make fucking sense very soon. Now, if you are not any of those things on the outside, on the inside, and beyond, okay, you and many people have heard this before. Some of you who have done some work on yourselves in the spiritual sense, in the self improvement area, even those of you who haven't done any of the work, you've often heard things like you're not your wallet, that you are not your bank account, that you are not the clothes you wear, you are not your car, that you are not your house, etc. Now we are at a point where, like we talked about before, never go past a word that you don't know, that you don't have a clear definition of, where having 100% understanding will make all the difference in the world. Now you'll know why it was so important for me to go over that with such detail. Most people identify themselves with what they own, or they look in the mirror and they say, that's me, that is my body, etc. I have some bad news. That will eventually become good news, but for now, it's bad news. Here it is. Your body, your bank account, your car, your house. Not only are none of those things you, none of those things are yours. Remember the price. None of those things are yours in any way. I will say it again. Your body, your bank account, your car, your house, not only are none of these things you, none of those things are yours in any way. What the fuck is this guy talking about? It is my body. It is my bank account, my car, my house. My name is on that shit. It's mine. Right? Wrong. I'll prove it to you. Go to a dictionary and define the word your. Your, I defined it. I'll define it for you. Your is defined as something you possess. Do you remember when I told you that sometimes you have to define the definition? What does possess mean? To possess something means to seize and take control of, to control firmly, to dominate. There's another definition for the word your. Remember, sometimes there are multiple definitions. Your is also defined as something you own. What does own mean? To acknowledge as one's own is to recognize as having full claim, authority, power, and dominion over, etc. To own something, to be able to call it yours, means that you have full control over it, that nobody can take it away. That is what it means. Look it up. Can you see where I'm going with this? No? Not yet? Your house, your car, your job, your bank account, they could all be taken away from you. And it doesn't have to be the government either. It could be a fire, an accident, a thief, rust, a moth. Sermon on the Mount. I only bring up the Sermon on the Mount because I want you to know how long these life-changing bits of wisdom have been around, right in front of us, hiding in plain sight. I said it before, your body, your bank account, your car, your house, not only are none of those things you, none of those things are yours. Technically, and in reality, in no way are they yours. So many people suffer because they give these things such importance when in fact these things don't even belong to them. Think about your own life. How much have you suffered to have things that in reality you could never own? And it's not just material things. Your lungs. Do you have any control over whether they work or not? No, you do not. Your heart. Do you have any control over whether it beats or not? No, you don't. There are 2 points that I want to make about all of this. Number one, that if you think about it, whether you want to accept it or not, whether you want to believe it or not, the fact is that none of those things that you think are yours are. Not even your children. Here's how I look at it. And since I started looking at life this way, it has given me appreciation and gratitude for everything in ways like you cannot imagine. But you will soon know. Here's how I look at everything in life, no matter what it is. It has been lent to me, put in my care, and sooner or later, I'm going to have to give it back. And when I do, I want to make sure that whoever gave it to me to use knows how grateful I am for their generosity. Marcus Aurelius, in his book, Meditations, it's also called Thoughts, talking about the death of a child, one's own child. It was never mine to begin with. How can I be upset when the true owner of a thing he has lent to me and now asks me to give it back? As long as it is in my care, I am going to take care of and honor this gift for however long I am privileged to have it. I'm going to appreciate it every moment that I have it, and I'm going to treat it with the greatest care. If you lend someone your car in mint condition and they return it dirty, garbage all over the floor, would you lend them something else? If you so generously lend someone your car and then you ask for it back and they said, hell no, how would you feel? Here's the second point I want to make. Number two, we suffer so much based on things we have no control over. And what is even worse, the one thing, the only thing that we do have control over, we think we don't. Or, as in most cases, we don't even know that we do have control over this. How many of you know what I'm talking about? What you choose to believe and what you choose to do with what you believe. Another word for it, two words actually. Free will. That's it. Free. Interesting that that word is in there. Joe Pesci, gotta give it to him. Sense of humor. Free will to choose what to believe and what you choose to do based on what you believe. That is all that truly, in fact, is yours. It is the only thing that you have that can never be taken away. It is the only thing you fully control, possess, own, and have complete dominion over. How many of you can honestly say that your decisions, all of them, are truly your own, without any influence but your very own? I will answer that question for you. If you are still here and or you suffer in any way, none of you. Starting to get warm in here a little bit. Isn't it? There's more. A lot more. It's coming. So, as an experienced ex sufferer, 36 years nonstop, the things that I thought I had control over and tried to control, I never could. Hence, suffering. Tons of it. The one thing I could control, I never did. I didn't even know I had the ability to control it. So others controlled it for me. Hence, suffering. Tons of it. Remember that I've been telling you all along that you're going to find out who's responsible for every ill, every woe, and every evil that exists in the world and in society today? That force, more than any other outside force, was the primary influence on my every thought, on my every decision and on every action I took in my life for 36 years, non-stop. Our parents, our teachers, they didn't really know what they were doing. On the other hand, religion, the media, corporations, the government, the global elite, they do in fact know exactly what they are doing. Tony Robbins says that people will do more to avoid pain than they will do to gain pleasure. I never forgot that quote either. That I learned like in 94 when I first started. They know how suffering works. They're experts at it. How do you think they're so efficient at manipulating us? You know? And the reason I keep saying that we need to stop pointing fingers is because we do the same thing they do on a smaller scale, but the same thing nevertheless. When our children don't do what we tell them to do, we use force. We bribe them. We manipulate and trick them into doing what we want them to do. Curfew, grounded, no TV, go to your room, time out. While you're under this roof, you'll do as I say. Look at all the child abuse. Same thing. Tyranny, totalitarianism, smaller scale. And then we have the audacity to get pissed off when the global elite or our government do the same thing to us. Think about it, you know? Something is wrong here. Why do we do this to people who deep down it is in our nature to love? Unconditionally, mind you. We are not created to control one another. If that was the case, tyranny, enslavement, revolution, those words wouldn't exist. We are created to communicate, to cooperate, and to cohabitate with one another. That is the only thing that makes us different from all the other species on this planet. I've also said many times that they are not the enemy, that it is not their fault, and it is not. Because the same force that I'm talking about, that evil son of a bitch, whether they know it or not, has, for the most part, influenced every decision they have ever made. And if, in fact, all the things that they have done to us, to humanity, to the planet, if all the things that they have done has been influenced by a force that they were unaware of, that they had no control over, then how can we blame them? If the things they have done has been influenced by a force that they were unaware of, that they had no control over, how can we crucify them? We can't. They knew what they were doing, but they didn't really know why they were doing it. Same goes for you. Same goes for you. If you know, not think you know, not believe you know, but in fact, if you truly know, beyond the shadow of a doubt, that everything you've ever done in your life, everything, every decision you have ever made, Every decision that you've ever made that's caused you to suffer, or things that you've done that have caused others around you to suffer. If it has been because of this unseen evil force that has influenced every decision you have ever made, a force that you do not and have never had any control over, how can you blame yourself? You can't. If the things you've done have been influenced by a force that you were unaware of, that you had no control over, how can you crucify yourself? How can you beat yourself up day in and day out over decisions that you've never made? You can't. Granted, you always have known what you were doing, but you didn't really know why you were doing them. I call the next section Clean Slate. In this next section, you're going to realize who is responsible for all the suffering in life. You're going to find out who is responsible for suffering, period, and why. With that said, it's time for a break. All right? Take a break. And when you come back, before you go forward, go back to the beginning of this video. I'll say it again. In the next section, the clean slate, the end of all suffering happens. But take my advice. At least go back to where we started talking about how to learn. You'll be glad you did. Because you will be really able to understand what's coming next. There's so much more than you think that you have learned this far, but I'm telling you right now that there's a lot of read between the lines type things that you surely missed up to this point. Tony Robbins, again, repetition is the mother of skill. I stand behind that 100%. Why do you think I read Marcus Aurelius a dozen times back to back? Stop this video, take a break to contemplate what you've just heard, what you've just learned, and you'll be glad you did. So take a break. I'm going to do the same, so I'm going to pause this video right now. And also, it will be very helpful for you to have a legal pad or a piece of paper. One piece will do just fine, and a pen that is in working order for when you get back. It'll be very useful in the next section, okay? Piece of paper, pad, legal pad, piece of paper, and a pen, okay? Or magic marker, whatever, all right? I'll see you at Clean Slate.